Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today is Wednesday, September 6th, and we are meeting on behalf of the Cluster API project for our weekly office hours. Cluster API is a sub-project of SIG Cluster Lifecycle. We're part of the CNCF. Please be kind to one another and respectful, and raise hands if you would like to speak. We'd love to hear from everyone. And without further ado, let's pause briefly and allow any newcomers to say hi and introduce yourself, who you work for, anything you'd like to say. So I'll pause now. And if you raise hand, I'll call on you and you can say hi. Wait 3 more seconds. Otherwise, looks like we've got the regular crew. All right. So let's get to today's, well, first thing, open proposals. Do we have any open proposals? If anyone wants to speak to any open proposals, feel free to raise hand. Otherwise, we'll go straight to the agenda, it looks like. All right, looks like Mike, you're up with the first 2 agenda items.
Yeah. So the first item here, this is kind of following on from our discussion the last couple of weeks. I've created a poll that I'm going to leave open for a week, and then I'll close it off like before next Wednesday, just to kind of figure out when we could have a meeting for people who are interested in Carpenter. And I know, Jack, this had come up while you were away, but just the point of the meeting would be to kind of get together with people who are interested in Carpenter and Cluster API and figure out what next steps might we want to take. Do we have enough people to form a feature group? Is this something that we might want to write a collaborative Cluster API provider for Carpenter, or do we want to figure out if Carpenter maybe fits in with some of the managed service work that we've been doing? So really this will just be a 1-hour meeting for us to get together and kind of talk about those initial things. So like I said, I should probably put a note there in the notes, but I'll leave the poll open until next Tuesday, and then next Wednesday I'll announce at the meeting like what we figured out or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. Does anybody have questions or comments about the Carpenter meetup, I guess?
I'm super happy to see folks who are talking about that over the summer. So what worked well for the managed Kubernetes feature group previously was meeting kind of before this meeting. That allowed, I think it's easier calendar maintenance for folks' minds, because Wednesday Cappy is like already in people's minds. And it also enabled discussion during this meeting to the larger Cappy group with freshness from, you're just kind of coming off of the more focused discussions, and it made that sort of general summary process a little easier in my experience. So I don't know if the other thing is going a little earlier in than this includes the European folks a little easier, because they've already probably willingly self-sacrifice their evenings for this meeting, so you're not asking them to sacrifice another evening.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just have to end up, see who shows up and who wants to talk about it. That may end up being a great way to hold it. I figured a doodle poll might be easiest, just to try and figure out, like, first to see like who's interested, what kind of group do we have there, and then kind of figure out time after that if we want to get something regular going. Because I don't even know if there's like enough interest yet for us to say, yeah, we should have something regular going on or whatever. Okay. I guess if there's no other comments or questions about that one, I'll go on to the next topic I had up here. Okay, cool. So the next topic, Cameron McAvoy put up a great patch a while ago to the autoscaler, up with a situation we have in clusters where the bearer tokens get refreshed on a more frequent basis. And so this PR is going to take care of like refreshing the tokens inside the autoscaler. It looks pretty good to me, but I just wanted to bring it here to see if perhaps we could get someone who knows the client Go like authentication mechanisms a little bit better than me to take a look. If we don't get any reviews by like end of the week, I'll probably just end up merging this. You know, Cameron's been working on it for a long time, and I guess they've been running it in production at Indeed, which is the company he works for. So I don't know, like it looks pretty good to me, but we went back and forth on these you know, on these mechanisms in the past with the bearer tokens and whatnot. I just want to make sure we don't mess something up here. So yeah, that's about it for me.
Well, I'll definitely take a look, Mike, although like you, I'm not an expert in the bearer tokens, but
Yeah, I mean, I asked people that I thought were more experienced, and they looked at the last version of this that we tried to fix, and so that's why I'm a little confused. So like, you know, but it seems to be working, so that's probably the best indication.
yeah, that's a loaded statement, unfortunately, with the various autoscaler providers, because we don't have great test coverage. Although, you know, I do have something scaffolded in CAPC, so I can wrangle some tests in that branch and see if I can break it.
Cool, awesome, thank you.
There's a lot of providers out there. Yes,
Yeah,
Cecile.
I mean, like Cecile, yeah, I'm not like, you know, this is one of those things where it's like sometimes, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, cool. Any further commentary on the previous two agenda items from Mike? All right, Nawaz, you're up.
Thanks, Jack. This was more of a question to maintainers, but the gist is that since a couple of weeks ago, we migrated release 1.3 jobs to EKS community cluster as part of utilizing the AWS credit. And then we were running into some GitHub rate limiting issues, but then that conversation led to a change on the EKS community cluster side where the test pods, which were spun up, they now have public IP address instead of all the traffic being routed via NAT gateway. So that did help the release 1.3 jobs performance on the cluster side. More or less, they have been a little green, better than being completely red or being throttled because of the GitHub rate limit. So we were wondering if this would be a good time to migrate release 1.4 jobs as well to the EKS community cluster, because September 26th is our upcoming release. It'd be better to have a green signal for the upcoming release, at least for 2 weeks. So if we can have a shift over now, if we notice any problems because of the underlying infra, we can always revert back. So this was more of a question to the maintainers out there. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. So Stefan, you raised your hand right as Nawaz was speaking, so I was wondering if you were wanting the previous topic or this topic.
This topic.
Okay, you're up.
I just read it ahead of time, so I knew what was coming. I would so I think there's no rush necessary that we already moved the release 1.4 tests over to the cluster before the release. I think it's also fine if we do it afterwards. What I would prefer, to be honest, is if we figure out why those pods are getting deleted and fix it, because essentially the problem is the following. I mean, essentially we're getting this flag on release 1.4 as well. And depending on what the actual problem is, it could be that at some point it just occurs way, way, way more frequently. So my guess would be, to be honest, is that we're just getting out of memory kills. So we have now on the cluster, we have resource requests and limits. And my prior experience with Pro was that essentially at some point, if you have the wrong request limits, your Pro chops just get, your Pro chop pods are just getting out of memory killed. And then you end up with something like this. I'm not 100% sure. But there's also a dashboard for this, so we can take a look at the corresponding dashboard and just see if basically our memory, the actual usage of memory is close to the limits, and then just basically bump the limits by a bit. I think we have a lot of spare room. And then see if it gets more stable. And basically, if that's fine and we're getting rid of those problems, we can move on. And I mean, should be quick. Just bump the limits and wait, I don't know, a few days. And if that doesn't fix it, it would be good to trigger some sort of investigation to figure out what's going on there. I don't know how much we can do and how much one of the, I don't know, one of the folks from Test Infra or something, or Kate's Infra, I can take a look there. I just want to avoid that we basically import the flakiness on other branches, and then we have some other change that we do, and then just of course like 50 or 80% of the time because we just don't know where it's coming from. Sorry, talk too much probably, but that's my take on it.
Yep, that definitely makes sense. And thanks, Christian, for posting a link to the dashboard to help us debug. And go ahead, Christian.
I want to add, I know there is some artifact which also contains the events with regards to that pro job part. Maybe there's some information there we didn't take a look at. But let's take that as async.
Appreciate the headway at least. I have a pointer to go look into. Thank you.
Okay, before we go to provider updates, any ad hoc agenda items anyone wants to offer? All right. Matt, you're first on the list for CapZ.
Thanks, Jack. I don't, pardon me, I don't really have anything to add to that. We just had a couple patch releases, and then a much more significant release should arrive next week.
Sounds fun.
That's it.
Sunat, looks like you would like to speak about Cap M3.
Yeah, Cluster API Metal Cube. Last week we released the v1.5.0 release, and it picks up the Capi v1.5.1 and Kubernetes v1.28.1. I just wanted to share with community. And we didn't
Great.
face any
Okay.
issues with Capi v1.5.1. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. That's all.
Yep, congrats on the release. Okay, we might be giving folks 43 minutes of our time back. Any last remarks? David.
I had one question. I was just trying to find if there was any reference documentation around using like secure secret rotation options with Capi. I mean, obviously it's just using Kubernetes secrets and there's lots of general options, but I wonder if there was anything specific for like people using it with Capi. We know.
I think the follow-up question would be, which secrets are we talking about?
For the provisioning from the management cluster.
Does anyone know that that's definitely not in the book, in the Capi book? Did you do a thorough audit of the Capi book, David T?
I could have missed it. I mean, I could do another search, but yeah.
Sorry, I just missed part of the question because I was writing in the Zoom chat. For which secrets? Or is that already answered here?
Just the connecting to Key Vault secret rotation for the management cluster or for cluster API.
I see. I think we don't have anything there pretty much. So what we implemented is basically a feature that you can rotate control plane machines before their certificates run out, because they are just created. Kubernetes just generates them with an expiry of a year. So usually if you don't upgrade it within a year, you run into problems. But I think apart from that, we only have that one documentation very basic say, hey, if you want to generate the CAs yourself, you can deploy those secrets with those names. That's definitely documented. But I'm pretty sure that at this time we don't really support like rotation of CA secrets, for example, or rotation of, I don't know, API servers serving certificates generated by an external tool, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, I did see an issue on that, specifically the secrets for the certificates. I'm just trying to get an idea if that's something that maybe is better fitted for the operator to try and tackle, or if it's a cluster API thing. And then also just general enterprise best practices if you're maintaining a long running, management controller with just regular secrets that are used to provision. Right?
Yeah, I think it really depends on which secrets exactly. Basically, we have the CAs that we generate on cluster creation, or someone can create them before. And then when we create a control plane or worker machines, KubeIDM generates certificates based on those CAs. And basically the story is that for control plane machines, those certificates run out after a year, which is why we at least have that feature that you recreate after a year if you configure it. And on worker machines, the situation is basically that per default, we are generating certificates. So for example, KubeIDM is generating it, the serving certificate of the kubelet, for example, but we don't enable so we don't enable on the Kube API server side that the serving certificate of the kubelet is actually verified. That means the serving certificate of kubelet also expires after a year, but it doesn't matter. We're talking via HTTPS, but we don't do any sort of certificate validation, so it doesn't matter that it expires. And the good solution for that one is that you basically get the automated certificate rotation working, which is a feature of Kubernetes, but it basically requires, I think it was called machine attestation or something. So there's a proposal lying around somewhere in core cluster API that never got implemented to implement some sort of, I don't remember how the components are called, but basically you need some sort of controller which attests that kubelet is, or that node is actually a node, and then the API server can automatically sign a certificate, which the kubelet automatically takes, and then it's just auto-rotated all the time. But that simply wasn't implemented.
Okay, it's maybe a proposal I can search on the repo to try and find that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or ping me in Slack and I can give you a link as well.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Cecile's got some hot live stream links going too. So
Okay,
Yep, that's definitely the proposal I was talking about, the last link.
cool, thank you.
all right. Anyone else want to bring anything up? Okay. Happy rest of your Wednesdays. Or Thursday if you're very early in New Zealand.
Thanks, Jake.
Jack.